I'm not sure that a land acknowledgement has been planned, but I do have one to offer. As part of our commitment to reconciliation, we acknowledge that Red Deer is situated on the traditional and current lands of Treaty 6 First Nations, the Nahayek, Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Dakota Sioux, and Treaty 7 First Nations, the Blackfoot Confederacy, Kainai Piikani, Siksika, as well as the Tsuut'ina Nation and Stoney Nakoda First Nation, and the Métis ancestral lands represented by the Otipemisiwak, Red Deer District 3. We are fortunate to connect on these lands today and express our gratitude for the many Indigenous people who have marked this land before us. Good morning, bonjour à tous. C'est un honneur accueillir notre Premier Ministre à Red Deer. I am here to introduce someone who requires no introduction to our Canadian communities. He originally called Edmonton home until high school, so I think we can omit our classic Red Deer question, which Alberta hockey team do you cheer for? But I have heard you say, go Rebels. So deep down, we know who you cheer for. So thank you. Prime Minister Carney pursued his studies in economics. His career began in finance prior to joining public service. As he states, he supports Canadian values around items like healthcare, security, and a life you can afford. These themes resonate in his personal life, as he and his wife Diane are proud parents to 4 children. His time as Governor of the Bank of Canada during the 2008 financial crisis resulted in being later recruited to lead the Bank of England in 2013. He began serving the United Nations Special Envoy on Climate Change and Finance in 2020 and was named our 24th Prime Minister in March 2025. Seems like a bit longer than that to me, I don't know. We were elected in the same year. Interesting. Welcome to Red Deer, Prime Minister Carney, and we are pleased to host you in this master-planned community of Capstone, a thoughtfully designed 91-acre riverfront district that is the jewel of our community to promote central design and densification that connects to the 110 kilometers of trails in our city. 2,000 homes and 5,000 people will call this space home. Prime Minister Carney, we are so grateful to have you here and to welcome you and Premier Smith and our other ministers and MLA here today. And we are well positioned and very willing to work with all levels of government to get positive things done for citizens we all serve. Thank you and welcome to Red Deer. Thanks for coming to pay us a visit.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much, Cindy, Mayor Jefferies, I should say, and thank you for welcoming Premier Smith, myself, ministers, the MLA, and the media to hear the amazing things that are happening here in Red Deer. Just before, I want to say a big shout out to the women and men who are building this incredible capstone development. This is remarkable craftsmanship. It's on budget, on time. It's allowing couples to move in and move forward with their lives, and it's a testament to what can be done with real purpose and energy. And let me, full credit to the team here and to Greg for leading them. This is my, it's great to be back in Alberta. It's my 10th time in Alberta since that short period of time, which feels like a long period of time since we formed government. And in part, it's because it's always good to be home. But more so, even more so, it reflects how much Premier Smith and I and our governments are doing together, because we have shared ambitions and a shared sense of purpose and urgency to get things done. Now, I'm going to come back to that in a moment. I want to acknowledge, though, as well, the wildfire season that we're facing across Canada. It's another challenging season, and on behalf of everyone here and all Canadians, I want to recognize the heroism of our firefighters, our emergency crews, Canadian Armed Forces when they're called into action. They're all working relentlessly across this country to battle wildfires, keep Canadians safe, including the Albertans who are battling flames here in this province and who are helping their neighbors in British Columbia as we meet today. It's in moments like these Canadians show who we are. And who we are is a people that look after each other because we know that we're stronger together. And it's the same spirit of being stronger together that brought Canada's first ministers together on Prince Edward Island last week. The Premier said I think she regrets it. She's seen more of me than her husband. I'm pleased. But we got together in PEI. You were there for several days. I was there for a couple of days. And together we focused on creating one Canadian economy, building our strength at home, and diversifying our trade partnerships abroad. And with respect to the first on one Canadian economy, the federal government has implemented legislation that remove all of the federal barriers to internal trade, making it easier for Canadian workers, businesses, and products to move across this country. It's a legitimate question why there are any federal barriers to internal trade in Canada, but they're gone now. During our meeting last week, the premiers made new commitments to double our electricity grid. I'm sure Alberta will lead the way on that. Commitments to have more direct-to-consumer alcohol sales across the country. Alberta already does lead the way on that. And commitments to enable greater labor mobility so Canadians can work where they want. By working together, we're also advancing major infrastructure projects across Canada. In less than a year, more than 25 nation-building initiatives have been submitted to the Major Projects Office, which its job is to fast-track them. That represents $200 billion in investments to help Canada build bigger, move faster, and export more. We're also creating a trading network that's the envy of the world. Canada already enjoys preferential access to 1.5 billion consumers in economies that represent 2/3 of global GDP. We just concluded a new trade agreement with the UAE that was negotiated in a record 47 days. By the end of the year, we intend to double our market access to 3 billion consumers by concluding new agreements with the ASEAN countries, with India, Thailand, and the Philippines. Now, the people of Red Deer know the importance of good trade relationships. I'll give an example in agriculture. Alberta produces almost 1/3 of Canada's canola, this region at the heart of production. And that was top of mind a few months ago in January when we went to Beijing to secure a new deal with China that unlocked $3 billion in export opportunities for Canada's canola farmers. Nous consolidons notre force au pays tout en diversifiant nos partenariats à l'étranger. Nous bâtissons un Canada plus fort que jamais. Nous accélérons la mise en œuvre de grands projets qui vont transformer notre économie et nous renforçons les infrastructures locales sur lesquelles les Canadiennes et les Canadiens comptent chaque jour. Les communautés locales sont le cœur du Canada. Et pour bâtir un Canada fort, nous devons bâtir un Lethbridge fort, une Medicine Hat fort, un Fort Mac fort, and surtout un Red Deer fort. Strong communities start right here. They start with housing. And of course, a home needs more than 4 walls and a roof, triple glazing, stone tops, clean. They also need clean drinking water, reliable sewage systems. For example, once completed, the new wastewater pipeline in Airdrie, not far from here, will unlock the construction of 45,000 new homes. And we need that because Albertans and Canadians can't afford the delays, because there were decades where across the country we didn't build enough housing. And so the average Canadian household spends more than half their income on mortgage payments. And that's only going to change if we move big and fast on community infrastructure. And that's why today the Premier and I are proud to announce the new Canada-Alberta Housing Infrastructure Fund Agreement. What does it mean? It means over the next 8 years, the Canadian government will invest more than $510 million through the Canada Housing Infrastructure Fund to help communities across Alberta build and, when necessary, upgrade essential drinking water, wastewater, stormwater, solid waste infrastructure, all of which is needed to build more homes in this province faster. Consider Red Deer. As the Mayor knows, as this group knows, this city powers central Alberta. Many industries, of course, anchor for oil and gas to agriculture. It's a region that helps Alberta produce what the world wants. People come here from all over for education, for care, for services, for opportunity. And Red Deer's growing. It's tripled in size since I first came here for the Alberta Summer Games. I was watching the Alberta Summer Games. I was not in it. Just like that draft notice from the Red Deer Rebels. It never came. The call never came, but I'm still supporting them. Today's announcement is going to help deliver the infrastructure that Red Deer needs to support that growth. Because on top of that $510 million of federal investment, Alberta will contribute at least a third of the eligible costs for projects led by municipal governments across this province. Now, that's not all. The Premier and I are also working to complete a new Alberta-Canada agreement through Build Canada Homes to scale up affordable home building. And through the Build Community Strong Fund, which is a new fund, we'll build the broader infrastructure that growing communities across Alberta need, so roads, public transit, community centres, hospitals, clinics. Now, we know that it's not just about what we build, it's how we build. Building in solidarity with workers. This agreement alone will support more than 750 skilled trades jobs every year, engineers, plumbers, electricians, pipe fitters, plumbers. We'll build inclusively with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. Today's agreement will allocate at least $100 million to projects that will benefit rural and Indigenous communities. Nous allons bâtir de manière durable. Dans le cadre de cet accord, l'Alberta va veiller, dans la mesure du possible, à ce que les projets soient réalisés avec des produits et des technologies qui réduisent les émissions de gaz à effet de serre. It's innovative. It's focused on different technological solutions to reduce emissions, not prescribing certain approaches. Nous allons bâtir canadien, avec de l'acier canadien, du bois d'œuvre canadien, des travailleurs canadiens. The federal government is on a mission to help supercharge affordable housing construction across Canada, led by that new agency, Build Canada Homes, which has already committed through 16 partnerships to 15,000 units, with more than 1,900 already under construction, and that's in the first few months of existence. Nous avons éliminé la TPS pour les acheteurs de première maison d'une valeur inférieure ou égale à $1 million, ce qui permet aux Canadiens et Canadiennes d'économiser jusqu'à $50 000. Il reste encore beaucoup à faire, mais les premiers résultats sont encourageants. Au premier trimestre de cette année, l'abordabilité de logement au Canada s'était améliorée pendant plus de 2 ans d'affilée, la plus longue période jamais enregistrée. La part de revenus que les Canadiens consacrent à leur paiement hypothécaire est tombée à son plus bas niveau en près de 4 ans. Et les loyers demandés sont aussi à leur plus bas niveau depuis près de 2 ans. Et leur rapport, le loyer-revenu, est le plus faible en plus de 6 ans. Affordability is improving because we're building. So, overall, some context. We have the right plan across those major projects across affordable housing to build Canada strong. We're on track. But the scale of the transformation is so large that it means some of the biggest payoffs are going to take some time. And that's where we're also focused on giving Canadians a boost today and a bridge to a better tomorrow. That's why we've cut taxes on incomes, on housing, on gas, and on investment. It's why we've introduced the groceries and essential benefit, up to $1,890 per family to help more than 1.3 million Albertans to get ahead. And that's why we will continue with a relentless focus on affordability, whether it's competition in broadband or building affordable electricity. In an increasingly divided and dangerous world, our unity is our greatest strength. Governments are working together in the spirit of cooperative federalism to make this country stronger, fairer, and more prosperous. That's how the Government of Canada is working with the Government of Alberta to advance a new oil pipeline to the West Coast. This will unlock new markets and support lasting prosperity in Alberta and beyond. The associated pathways carbon capture initiative will make Alberta's oil some of the lowest in carbon intensity in the world, while creating an entirely new industry built once again on Albertan drive and ingenuity, just as Alberta did with the oil sands when I was growing up here. Combined, these projects will catalyze over $200 billion in direct investments, create over 175,000 jobs across this country. That's above and beyond my earlier reference to the major projects at the start. Now, more generally, the Premier and I are working to give investors and builders the greater certainty they need through a new agreement that delivers one project, one review. We rely on Alberta's leadership there. Such cooperation is essential to building out Alberta's electricity grid, its housing supply, its critical infrastructure. In Alberta, across Canada, we're strongest together, united, focused, working towards the same goals, making better lives for all our citizens. That's the approach Canada's new government has taken from the start, working with every province and territory to build our strength at home and to diversify those partnerships abroad. And as a consequence of that, even though we've got a lot more to do, we're in a stronger position today than when the trade war began. We're now creating jobs at twice the rate of the United States. Canada's non-U.S. exports are up sharply. They're on track to double over the next decade. Foreign direct investment in Canada is at its highest level in 2 decades and running at twice the rate of our nearest G7 competitor. Canada now ranks as the most attractive country in the world for infrastructure investment, and we're just getting started. Building Red Deer strong, building Alberta strong, and Canada strong for all. Thank you very much. And it is now my pleasure to introduce the Premier of Alberta, Danielle Smith.
Thank you so much, Prime Minister. Well, thank you and good morning. Thank you to the Prime Minister to join me here at the Premier at Capstone Multifamily Development in Red Deer. Delighted to also be here at the invitation of Mayor Cindy Jefferies, who I also spent a lot of time with in the last month. This has been the place to be with the air show, where I got to see the Canadian snowbirds for the last time in their old jets, the two-door jets, as well as for Westerner Days, and then also to my colleagues in the legislature, Jason Steffen, the MLA for Red Deer North, Adriana LaGrange, not only the MLA for Red Deer South, but also the Minister of Hospital and Surgical Services, and Minister Nathan Neudorf, who is our Minister of Assisted Living and Social Services, and will be building a lot of the homes and overseeing the affordable housing file, as well as seniors construction, as well as subsidized housing over the next several years. This is the geographic center of the Calgary-Edmonton corridor, one of Canada's most important economic routes. Just a few weeks from completion, the Capstone project will provide homes for 119 families here in the heart of Alberta's third largest city. This forward-looking development is part of Red Deer's efforts to revitalize its downtown and create new opportunities for people to live, work, and raise their families here. And Red Deer, like so many communities across Alberta, has experienced the pressures that come from the kind of rapid population growth that we've seen over the last 5 years, as we've welcomed over 600,000 people to our province. This growth has strained public services and infrastructure all over the province, and it's highlighted an acute need to build more and to build faster to catch up. And Alberta's home builders have done a tremendous job of increasing housing supply to meet that demand. And that's why I'm pleased to join the Prime Minister today as we announce a new partnership that allows Alberta municipalities to access more than $510 million in federal funding over 8 years through the Canada Housing Infrastructure Fund for the water and wastewater infrastructure needed to support new housing and to help communities keep pace with growth. Alberta will contribute a minimum of 1/3 of eligible project costs led by municipal governments, unlocking up to $428 million of provincial funding for qualifying projects. And together with our partners, Alberta is driving $9 billion in housing investments to support 25,000 additional affordable households by 2031. Through our Stronger Foundation strategy, we are on track to support a total of 82,000 low-income households by 2031, which is an increase of more than 40% from 2021. And I'm proud to state that we are already 70% of the way towards this goal. Budget 2026 included a commitment of $2.2 billion over 3 years towards affordable housing and continuing care capital. And this includes a commitment of more than $750 million to the Affordable Housing Partnership Program over the next 3 years. And through our last round of the Affordable Housing Partnership Program, we invested $323 million in 41 projects to support more than 3,600 affordable housing units and over 70 emergency shelter spaces. But Alberta's success is not limited to affordable housing. Alberta is a national leader in market housing. Last year, for the first time in Alberta's history, more than 53,000 housing starts were recorded, 14% higher than the previous record set in 2024. For the second year in a row, Alberta has led Canada in housing starts per capita. And despite making up less than 12% of Canada's population, Alberta built nearly a quarter of all housing starts nationally in 2025 and more than 80% of all housing starts across the prairies. Alberta builders are doing their part, but builders can only build when the infrastructure is there to support new communities. A whole lot of work has to happen in the background and literally under the ground before the first shovel ever breaks the surface. A development like the one behind us is simply not possible without reliable water and wastewater systems. Connecting housing to critical infrastructure takes careful collaboration between developers, governments, utility companies, and a whole range of other stakeholders. The fact is that communities like Red Deer can only grow when the infrastructure beneath them grows too. And our government is committed to making sure that communities across Alberta have the water infrastructure they need to support residents, businesses, industries, and future growth. The agreement protects provincial jurisdiction, builds on a strong provincial record of investments in water and wastewater infrastructure, and gives Alberta this ability to direct funding where it's needed most. Our government will identify and prioritize projects based on local needs, ensuring that municipalities, rural communities, and Indigenous communities can access the infrastructure funding that they need to maintain existing systems and support housing growth and economic development. Under the agreement, at least $100 million will be allocated to projects in rural or Indigenous communities across the province, ensuring communities of every size can benefit from the infrastructure needed to support growth. The Ministry of Transportation and Economic Corridors is developing the first list of projects under this agreement by the end of November. This agreement was made possible by a collaborative approach, and I want to thank the federal government for working with us in that spirit. I also want to thank Eagle Builders, who has been a wonderful partner for our government, not only with the Child Advocacy Centre, but this incredible facility, which we learned was built in 10 months, with the highest quality materials. The residents will be able to save about 30% on energy costs because of some of the design features, and I'm looking forward to seeing Eagle Builders be able to add much more to our housing stock in Alberta. And with that, am I turning it over to Craig, or is it now questions?
Go into questions.
Go into questions, all right.
They'll
Probably mostly be for you,
Please identify what the question is for, as well as your outlet and your name. S'il vous plaît, vous identifier ainsi que pour qui la question s'adresse. Louis-Philippe?
I'm loving it. You are the place to be. I'm not kidding. We're trying.
1, 2, 1, 2. Parfait. Louis-Philippe Trotteau, je suis avec Radio-Canada. Mes questions sont pour le premier ministre Carney. La première concerne les redevances que vous n'imposez plus aux plateformes de diffusion américaines. On voulait savoir, est-ce que c'est une nouvelle concession de votre part dans vos négociations avec Washington? Est-ce que vous cherchez des leviers, dans le fond?
Non, pas du tout. Nous avons décidé, juste après les décisions de CRTC, que c'est une question, et je viens de le dire, nous sommes le gouvernement fédéral consente sur l'abordabilité sans relâche. Et la forte augmentation des primes pour des streamers, c'est pas acceptable dans la situation, même si on fait de progrès. Alors on a pris la décision il y a quelques mois, je crois, au commencement de l'été. C'était la décision à ce moment-là. Il y a un processus, il y aura une direction CRTC du gouvernement pendant les prochaines semaines. Alors, ce n'est pas de nouvelles.
Une question sur les élections partielles.
Oui, pardonnez-moi, mais en même temps, il y a des grands investissements dans la culture et le langage canadien, les deux langues officielles, plus de 600 millions de dollars. Okay? C'est le même parti de l'annonce. Sans relâche sur la volabilité et sans relâche sur la protection, le renforcement de la culture canadienne et la langue française.
Merci. Et sur les élections partielles,
Ouais.
Les Canadiens sont en vacances, c'est l'été. Il y a une élection provinciale au Québec qui va accaparer beaucoup d'attention. C'est quoi l'urgence pour vous de déclencher des élections partielles en ce moment?
Premièrement, il y a un Parlement. Ça vaut mieux d'avoir des députés au Parlement. Et c'est, en ce qui concerne les citoyennes et citoyennes de Chicoutimi-le-Fort, il n'y en a plus de députés pour le moment. Alors, il y a une occasion, il y a une fenêtre maintenant, avant la campagne officielle de l'élection du Québec, qui va dérouler en septembre et au début d'octobre. Alors, on a choisi de prendre l'occasion pour les citoyennes et citoyens de Chicoutimi-le-Fort.
Merci.
Merci.
Next question. Prochaine question.
Nadhir Hashmi, CBC News. My question is to the Prime Minister. Prime Minister, today's announcement is in Red Deer, where the $12 million housing accelerator fund agreement fell through because the city refused to mandate blanket zoning. So what does today's announcement actually change for Red Deer? Does it mean the city has another part to federal funding, or does it still have to change its zoning?
I think there's a couple of things. One is it unlocks funding, and there was a tranche of funding, as the mayor well knows, $3 million, I believe, which was clarified that would proceed or would not be held back. Yeah, you can use it and deploy it. I think also, though, and I'm going to make this a more general point, and it's a point with respect to aspects of zoning. It's a point with respect to materials, as the Premier and I were exchanging, and as we were reviewing some of the building processes here, how to achieve the same objectives with different methods, so not overly prescribing how to achieve. So the technology here embedded in the houses, it's very thermally efficient. There's an even fancier word for it that I've forgotten, but the thermal pair, but it's very thermally efficient, as the Premier said, 30% reduction in emissions. The advantage of, and there's different ways to achieve those types of outcomes. And so one of the things we're doing, and with our new programs, Build Canada Homes, that are organized around Build Canada Homes, Build Canada Strong infrastructure funds, is we're being less prescriptive. We're being clearer about the objectives. We're recognizing that there will be different solutions in different municipalities and certainly within different provinces across the country, and tailoring agreements, and with a focus which is very much shared by the government of Alberta. I know other governments, but you see it in action here on getting things done and moving forward and getting things done. So the specific has been addressed. The general lesson is being taken on, both with respect to how to build in zoning, but also materials and how to achieve common outcomes.
So just to be clear, does Red Deer still get the $12 million housing accelerator fund, or not?
It gets the $3 million, and then we moving quickly to other mechanisms that I'm confident will ensure that considerably more resources will be available to the City of Red Deer, other municipalities in Alberta, to achieve the very real housing objectives that are here. So moving forward, I think I look at it in the round in terms of the overall amounts. The specific issue was addressed. The broader issues and the flow of funding around that are being addressed as part of this announcement, but also other things the Premier and I and our governments are working on.
And how is this Canada, Alberta?
Sorry.
Question. Prochaine question.
Yeah.
Next question, please. Thank you.
This is part of the fairness doctrine here.
Hiren Manzakani, Post Media, Calgary
Hi.
Herald. Hi. The disagreement around the Housing Accelerator Fund has led to a lot of friction. Now Finance Minister Jason Nixon threatened to forbid Ottawa from having any housing deals with Alberta municipalities after CMHC cancelled its funding for Red Deer under the Housing Accelerator Fund. What is your response? Will Ottawa cave into Alberta's demands to reinstate funding for Red Deer?
Well, it's a very similar question to, it's phrased slightly more inflammatory language to the question just asked. We're focused on building affordable housing. We're focused on building and the infrastructure that helps supporting that, as today's announcement is about, that supports that affordable housing. Housing that's cheaper for people to live in, that's reliable, that's part of great communities and all the community services. We have existing programs, we being the federal government, that are running off. And we're working, and we've shown flexibility in order to make sure that as much as possible under the terms of those programs that's working. We have major investments coming on, you see around, and we've taken the lessons and more from previous experiences and how to work together to be effective. There are great housing needs in Alberta. There are great builders in Alberta, and using the latter in order to achieve the former is what we're focused on and working with the province. And I'm just going to underscore again, there are flexibilities that we've shown here in a variety of ways. That's not caving in. That's working towards the same goal. The same thing's going to happen with the City of Calgary, and the same thing's going to happen more broadly with other agreements because, and this, I just really want to hammer this point home. We're working to make the lives of our citizens better, right? Whether it's where they live, the schools they go to, the health care they receive, the opportunities they have in the province and around the world. You figure that out by talking, you figure that out by working together, and you figure it out by acting and just remembering what your ultimate goal is. And I think that we're building that track record. Yeah, please, I'll let the Premier.
I'll just, my understanding is there were certain rules under that old agreement, and with the change in Red Deer Council, that had that particular program not qualify. I'm glad that there was an accommodation made for $3 million, but I've talked to my minister, Minister Neudorf, that the reason we're here is we recognize how important it is to continue to support Red Deer. And with the new agreement, I think we'll have more flexibility to be able to bridge that gap. That's what we're working towards. So we recognize that there's about a $9 million chip on the table. I know that Mayor Jefferies will do her job of lobbying on behalf of her community, but I think you should look at us being here as a measure of goodwill, that the federal and provincial governments are prepared to work together so that we can bridge that gap from the change in the program, so that there's new parameters that will accommodate some of the new wishes of the new council.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Premier. My follow-up is for Prime Minister Carney. What is your opinion on an Alberta piece of legislation, Bill 18, that restricts Ottawa from having any deals with Alberta municipalities without provincial approval?
Well, look, my opinion, I leave legislative decisions to those who've been elected by the people of Alberta, some of whom are here today, and they make the decisions. What we're focused on, and I personally am focused on, our Minister of Housing and Infrastructure, Mr. Robertson, are focused on, Mr. Olszewski, representing our Alberta MPs, are focused on, is building affordable housing, building community, helping to build affordable housing, building communities, building opportunity, and working together. And look, the way different provinces and this is a federation. It's not all the same in the way different provinces and territories, their priorities, how they work with the federal government, it varies. And cooperative federalism means you work for common objectives and you tailor accordingly, and that's what we're doing. And ultimately, in affordable housing, you're judged by how much is there, what's the quality, does it come on time, is it part of a bigger community, and how does it work? And that's how we should be judged. And we'll let the ledge decide what they do, and we'll work with what they decide.
Thank you so much.
Next question. Question question.
Hi, question for the Prime Minister. Matthew Skates, the Globe and Mail. Going off a rough translation from an earlier question, you say funding requirements for the streamers decision wasn't connected to Washington, but it was an irritant for Washington and a change the Trump administration wanted. Your government has capitulated on revenue splitting for Gordie Howe Bridge, digital service tax, and removing funding for American streamers. What has Canada gotten in return for these concessions?
Well, let's do a couple of things. Sorry, I'm going to do a little premise surgery for your question. Let's be clear about the bridge. The bridge, first off, the bridge is open. The bridge is open in a region, a narrow economic region that has $300 billion of economic activity that goes across land connections between the United States and largely the province of Ontario. $300 billion of economic activity. $6.5 billion cost of that bridge. A agreement that's less than 5% of that amount, less than 5% of that amount. That is then reinvested in economic support for that economic activity to enhance that economic activity. So we put that in perspective. That's being pragmatic and moving forward. And we got a bridge that's open. We've got opportunities open. And in terms of where we are as a country, we still have the lowest tariff rate of any country on an average basis. We still have north of 80% of our trade, 85 as we speak today, but north of 80% of our trade is tariff-free with the United States. And we're engaged in discussions with them. Now, we're engaged with discussions working to have a more permanent or more stable is a better way to put it. Nothing's permanent, but a more stable relationship, trading relationship with the U.S. That addresses issues in some of our largest industries. And that recognizes the new U.S. approach to trade. So we're starting from a strong position. And I'm going to go back to one other thing, and I'll head back, which I said at my prepared remarks. And we're stronger than we were when this started. We are stronger than we were when this started. We're growing jobs twice the rate of the U.S. Our FDI is twice the rate of our nearest competitor. That's the United States. It's twice the rate of the U.S. We're the best country in the world judged for infrastructure investment. We're focused on the right things: affordable housing, community, becoming an energy superpower, diversifying. Everybody wants to do more with Canada, except the United States. Everyone wants to do more with Canada. So we're engaged in all these trade negotiations, and we're delivering them, and we're on track to have access, free trade access to 3 billion consumers. That's what we got.
Follow-up?
On the streaming decision, how should Canadians interpret that decision when Minister LeBlanc and Canadian officials are at an event yesterday co-sponsored?
We made that decision 2 months ago. That's how they should. We made that decision with a focus on affordability right out of the gate. It's not the time. You know, Canadians are under. Sorry, I should let you finish your question. You finish your question. But Canadians have been under great pressure since COVID from overall inflation, price of groceries, housing costs, price most recently because of the war in Iran, price of energy. And we have taken, as other governments have, but we have taken a series of decisions. First thing we did was to cut the consumer carbon tax. First thing we did after the election was to cut income taxes for 22 million Canadians. We cut GST on for first-time home buyers up to $1 million. We implemented pro-competitive decisions in broadband. People didn't notice it, but last summer we made a pro-competitive decision in broadband. We went along with the CRTC in that case because it improved competition and has helped reinforce the fall in broadband prices. But when we see costs increase because of a decision from the federal family, broadly speaking, arm's length regulator, but from the federal family, for something that, you know, most Canadians have one or two or so of these streamers, and it's real money. This stuff adds up, and there's a better way to do it. We took the judgment there was a better way to do it, made the investment in culture, and we'll give the direction accordingly. It's that focus on affordability. Sorry.
Can you say what we're getting in return from the U.S. right now in terms of the trade negotiations? We have these lists of things that are happening right now.
The best trade deal in the world right now. Thank you.
Next question. Prochaine question.
Yeah, hi, Jordan Canagan with CTV News. Thank you for taking my questions. The first question is for both the Prime Minister and for the Premier. As we move towards the referendum in October, some of the separation angst, if you will, is driven by concerns over equalization payments and the feeling and the belief that Albertans are being taken advantage of. Certainly there's some disinformation when it comes to equalization, but do you think that the program should be reviewed before its renewal in just a few years?
Well, thanks for giving me the opportunity to lobby the Prime Minister on this. I've lobbied my fellow premiers at the table, and you can imagine that those who are benefiting from equalization want to keep the program as it is. But it's not fair because the growth in the program grows with the size of the economy, which is kind of counterintuitive, because if the economy is growing and everybody's doing better, they should be less reliant on the equalization program. In fact, we've calculated that there's overcompensation to the have-not provinces of $7 billion over the last 5 years. So my pitch to my fellow premiers, and now my pitch to the Prime Minister, is let's just get rid of that escalator. Let's equalize to the point of need, and then let's take the excess that's in that fund and distribute it back to the provinces on an equal per capita basis. That'll help us with our funding pressures. And I think it will be a demonstration that just because there's extra money, you don't just cut a check to Ontario, who clearly doesn't need it. They're a powerful economy. They shouldn't be getting equalization from smaller provinces. So that's been my consistent position. We think ultimately we should change the equalization program so that we look at per capita spending as well. We shouldn't be over-equalizing provinces so they can pay for more generous social programs than we're able to afford here ourselves. I haven't made much headway yet with my fellow premiers on who are the recipient provinces, but I can tell you that the ones who are kind of the net contributors, I feel as well that we've got to get a bit more fairness into the program. So I don't know if the Prime Minister wants to respond to that, but thanks for the opportunity to put our position on the table.
Thank you. There you go. Well, he did say it was for both of us, and he just sort of nice little softball straight across the plate there, telegraphed. No, look, these are important. These are hugely important issues. All seriousness, whether it's equalization, whether it's health funding, other federal programs, and one of the things that underpins the country is a sense of fairness. And then you move into the interpretation of that fairness and how it's applied. And at the heart of fairness, and this is true it's true within a province, it's true across the country, is that Canadians have access to reasonably comparable services, right? Whether it's health, education, reasonably comparable. Doesn't mean it's exactly the same, but it's reasonably comparable, and that they have reasonably comparable resources in order to do that. Now, the second part of that equation, the reasonably comparable resources, the calculation of that and how that changes over time. Some provinces do better, others do, things, there are shocks. The trade stuff can be an element of that if it's more persistent. And that's why the program is reviewed on a regular basis. It's not reviewed every year. And that's a cooperative and engaged process, and we have a review of that coming up, and of course we'll be looking hard at that. The other element, of course, is delivering services right here and now, and making sure that we are, again, in that spirit of cooperative federalism, that when I say we, the federal government, is delivering, recognizing the differences in the capacities, the needs, the capabilities of the various provinces, and that's what you're seeing today.
Follow-up?
Thank you. Yes, and for the Prime Minister again, we're 3 weeks away until new President Trump's tariffs coming into effect. Are you willing to use Canadian energy as a bargaining chip in trade negotiations with the United States? Yes or no?
Well, we're 3 weeks away from the August deadline. My colleagues, Janice Charette, who's our chief trade negotiator, and Minister LeBlanc, the relevant minister, are both in Washington now. So they're engaging with their counterparts. Look, we will, first and foremost, we're engaged in those negotiations to look to find a mutually beneficial solution. And we're only going to accept a solution that works for Canadians. We have lots of options of what we would do if that's not there, both positive in terms of supporting the economy and also addressing other issues. But I'm not going to be drawn on what we're going to do. We're going to focus now on building towards an agreement if an agreement is possible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll have time for one last question. Dernière question. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. Will Vassar with the Western Standard. This one's for the Prime Minister, and it kind of builds upon the last part of the previous question. But in Alberta, specifically talking about Alberta oil, to what degree does the risk of really inflaming the independence sentiment here weigh into that decision of whether or not to put Alberta oil on the table?
I think one of the things, let me answer this way. Thank you for following up with it. I wanted to give a broader answer to the way we're looking at the trade negotiations, but you're coming back to this core thing. It's important. Being a reliable supplier is important. Canadians are reliable. Canadians can be trusted. One of the things that you see in the world, we have many exports and commodities. One of the biggest commodities, arguably the best, is trust. People trust us. And so when you're a supplier of a key commodity, key service, you got to think really hard about not supplying. So that very much colors it. So look, this is incredibly diverse country economy. We have many things we can do. First and foremost is to work towards an agreement. That's what we're going to do. But there's other things we can do if we needed to address the situation was there. And the issue you're raising that was raised previously, it's not. I don't see the value of doing. I mean, I can understand conceptually, but I don't see the value of it. So it doesn't enter in. I guess to put a fine point on the way you asked the question, the referendum, the calculate that doesn't enter into the calculus. It's a bigger issue, more fundamental issue.
Last follow-up. Go ahead.
The independence question takes up a lot of the air with the referendum, but other questions on it address immigration. And the Premier's talked about wanting to seek more provincial control over immigration. And so my question would be, what's your willingness to work with Alberta on that if Albertans vote they want to seek more provincial control?
I think I'd say a couple of things. First, we had a discussion of this just a few days ago amongst First Ministers. I thought it was quite a productive discussion because it was a well-informed, well-grounded stock take of where we are and a commitment to, and this obviously Premier has her perspectives and views and represented them well, but all of the premiers, including territorial premiers, raised issues around this. And let me put immigration in context, and I'll finish, and maybe give Madame a very quick. I'll finish this though. We have taken back control of immigration. The government's been in place for 16 months. We came in where immigration had been far too high. We'd lost control, of levels and foreign students and temporary workers. The level of asylum seekers is down a third, or the flow. The temporary foreign workers down by a half. Foreign students down by 2/3. So we've taken control. We're on top of the numbers. Now it creates the opportunity, and as First Ministers, Premiers, Prime Minister, governments, we need to discuss where we go from here. Do we still need to, because the overall levels still are putting pressure on housing others. So do we still need a few more years of restraint? There's a good argument for that, but we need to discuss that. And then at the same time to talk about, as economic migrants come in, as the term is used, well, what skills should they have? And do the provinces have a better perspective on what those skills would be, and how do we engineer a system for that? That was the spirit of the discussion, and we're very open to that discussion. That doesn't require any tick on any box in a vote, because that's working again to get things right. And I think this is going to be the good news is, because we've taken back control on immigration, it creates the possibility to have that discussion. If the whole thing were, we still were having overshoots by 500,000, 1 million people relative to what we expected at any given time, we wouldn't have, we didn't have the space for that discussion. Now we've created the space, as we should, and that's what Canadians deserve. If it's a quick question, I think we can take one.
Thank you so much. Alexa Poza with Juno News. For the Prime Minister, are you prepared to deport the students of Portage College who are hunger striking to stay in Canada despite having no permit to remain? And to Premier Smith, are you prepared to start decertifying diploma mills in Alberta?
I'm not familiar with the specific case, I'm afraid, and I would. But so, and we have processes to make those decisions, and they need to be. They need to be followed, and if people are not here, if they don't have authorization to stay and they don't have right to claim asylum, then there's a process that would be followed. But I'm not familiar with the details of the question. Thank you.
I wouldn't describe Portage College as a diploma mill. There have been instances where I think unscrupulous operators have set up diploma granting programs and taken advantage of students. I think perhaps Portage maybe overstated the pathway to permanent residency. But our view is that if you come here as an international student and your visa expires and you don't have permanent residency, you need to go home. But it also goes to the Prime Minister's earlier point that if those students have the skills that we need, then we're best positioned to be able to offer them permanent residency. At the moment, we only have 6,400 spots. I think we've got 40,000 people who have sought permanent residency from us, and so that's why I think we need a bit of a better balance. Quebec is able to choose about 45,000 of their permanent residents. through a different program. And so if you're looking at the scale, we think that we need to be able to have more autonomy to do that. And then that would allow us to address some of the pressures that we're hearing about in the news, and also make sure that those who go through those programs with the hope of getting permanent residency, as long as we can identify a pathway where there's a job that is one that cannot be filled by an Alberta worker, then I think that we can work with the federal government to find more opportunities for us to make those choices.
Thank you. That puts an end to our press conference.
Thanks, everyone.
Conférence de presse. Merci.